The wet hair look always makes me seem like I just walked out of the insane asylum, which I think fits me in a way, in a really fucked up way. However, this is coming from the summer. This is July 7th of 2005. It's a Smackdown. It's really fucking good. So far, it's working. Looking back at older Smackdowns actually introduces me to, especially random ones, how entertaining WWE was back then as opposed to now. It gives me that look, that glimpse into the difference between what we have now and what we had then. This one took place where the previous Raw took place, the one I reviewed before in 2003, somewhere in Sacramento. Some big place in Sacramento, big enough to hold everything that they do in the WWE. So, upon looking at this one, some of the things that impressed me was the fact that this was like post draft. So they were introducing the ideas and concepts. They were basically recapping what happened before. Because Cena was drafted to Raw, and since he had the world title, that means that SmackDown had no world title and Raw had two. So they had to like compete to see who would be the new SmackDown champion. That's what they were gonna call it, the SmackDown champion. They were gonna make a new world title. Imagine if there were three world titles. Eventually, JBL was the one to win this six-man tournament. There were six guys in the room, and they were all fighting and shit. And as it turns out, JBL won, and instead of him becoming the SmackDown champion, Batista ended up getting drafted to Raw, so he just ends up the number one contender. Some kind of sick irony that he was doing some heel shit while in the match, and eventually he has to work double. So that's kind of cool. I like how they build it up like that as opposed to SmackDown 2011 when Orton got drafted to SmackDown and it didn't really flow very well. Christian got the title, and then 5 days later he loses it to Orton. It's kind of ridiculous. Speaking of Christian and SmackDown, he plays a really good role here where for the first time Christian has consecutively main event that Raw, and he's gonna main event this SmackDown. Okay, I should jump to the opening segment. JBL shows up and he's pissed as all hell because of what's happened to him. He feels like he got screwed, which is perfect since he just mentioned Montreal 97, Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. And then you see his music go off again, but it's not him, it's Stevie Richards, who is the impersonator. That's his gimmick. He basically impersonates other people. And he shows up with the rest of the crew, and they reveal that they've been drafted to SmackDown. They're the BWO, which is a crappy ripoff of the NWO. So they're ripping off two people at the same time, which is kind of funny. They're ripping off a staple of wrestlers, and they're ripping off JBL's posse and JBL himself. So well, honestly, I thought in the beginning that this was corny. Yeah, once they started firing insults at each other and bringing up ECW, since One Night Stand wasn't too long ago, and revealing JBL's frustration with the ECW crew, that's when it started getting interesting, because you got that layering, you got that conflict, you got that animosity towards each other, and it was comic relief, but it was good comic relief. It wasn't Santino comic relief. It was silly and stupid, but the fact that it isn't IQ draining, and it has some layering, some excellent storytelling and substance, that's what ultimately raises the value. going into our first match, it's a match between, and this is really interesting because it's for a mid-card title, the United States belt, but it's, what's his face? Booker T, one of my favorites, and I'm so out of it that I can't even remember his fucking name. I gotta even, hurry up and think it through. Versus Chris Benoit. Two talented guys competing for a mid-card title, and they've won a world title on numerous occasions in numerous companies. Although yeah. So that's really interesting. They had a rivalry in the past in WCW, so they're fighting again. They're both guys that are over with the crowd, and Benoit gets the win, so he gets to face Orlando Jordan. That's how you push a new talent. You have him essentially defending, not competing for it, but defending his title against a legend who just beat another legend. That's putting a nigga over. Hell yeah. So Orlando should be like touching away because of that. Of course, Benoit wins. Booker T's wife, Charmel, I don't know. She's like, man, what the hell happened from the TV? But he put up a great match. He was in the lead for most of it. Booker T was basically dominating, but Benoit's an intimidating guy. You can't just fuck with him. Next, skipping ahead, because there's a lot of recaps with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, Muhammad Hassan, and how he felt he was screwed over, and how it led to Davari ended up getting a match with Undertaker instead of Hassan because of Teddy Long. But our next match, my memory's a little fuzzy, of course, even though I just saw this about an hour ago. Yeah, no Divas match for this Smackdown. That's really interesting. Nowadays, we put Divas matches in it just for principle. Although we've been putting less and less Diva matches. I'm going to skip straight to the tag team match. And I'll get back to whatever happened before. A tag team match was Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero versus Eminem. So you got this contrast in styles and personalities. However, this match wasn't really about them actually competing to get Eminem's tag team title. It's about how Rey Mysterio eventually gets his ass beat by Eddie Guerrero in a very cruel and vicious manner. And then Eddie just watches, sits back, and relaxes while Eminem just worked to get her to beat the living hell out of Rey Mysterio. It's more about him bullying him and just fucking with his life and blackmailing him because he doesn't want to tell. Because Rey doesn't want Eddie to tell the truth that his son really isn't his biological son or something of that nature. I think that's what it was. So it's just mind games and shit. And of course, Eminem gets the victory. They keep their titles. Good for them, I guess. Yeah. Oh, I know a lot of people were probably drooling because of Melina. That's a definite truth. Next match. Alright, this is the fourth match. Davari versus Undertaker. It was a definite squash match. But Davari is constantly trying to escape. He's very apprehensive, very scared of the Undertaker. I mean, who wouldn't be? However, Muhammad Hassan keeps throwing him back into the ring, saying, "You gotta be the sacrifice." Apparently, Undertaker's extra pissed at Hassan, so he's using Davari as that sacrifice. So, show this could happen to you pretty soon. And of course, Davari gets his ass kicked. he gets his ass beat. It's a very quick squash. It isn't that kind of squash where it's constantly circling itself. That's not how it is. I gotta remember what was the second match. Hold on. I'm gonna go back and check it. Hopefully the clicking noises don't piss you off too much. I'm gonna go to history. Because I'm pretty sure it's a good match. Of course it's a good match. I like how YouTube's new, and this is a tangent, but YouTube's new design, complaining a lot about the one in. However, this new design YouTube did is really effective. It doesn't have that gray shit that I fucking hated. It's not that gray shit. It's back to being black and white. It's more new, more modern looking, as it's always been since 2011, especially with the new logo, which isn't as glossy. It's more, it has less dimension in it. But that minimalism, you can say, is more attractive nowadays. We're more minimalistic and less extreme, like in the 90s and the zeros, the ages where you would have a lot of fucking economic boom and bust, so we were all happy and then crashing all the time. That caffeine society, not this bitter decline thing. So I guess I'm just psychologizing. Oh, fuck, it was the opening segment. JBL versus... This was the second match. JBL versus that nigga from the BWO. This is... You'd think it'd be a squash match, but it kind of takes turns, and JBL's great at bleeding and shit like that. Not only does he bleed from over here, but also like from like the hairline thing. So he's bleeding down from there too, because of it's a no disqualification match, and they're going crazy at it. And because it's no disqualification, the other BWO members, even though they're face, are getting involved, and Batista eventually gets involved to screw over JBL right when JBL is about to win. So that's really fucking interesting. How these guys are faces, but they can still cheat. And another thing is that, just looking at this whole Smackdown, the general manager played a role, but he didn't overpower the whole show. That's kind of what I hate about Smackdown and Raw nowadays, where the general manager, you just have to see this guy every time. You got to see his or her theme all the fucking time, and that could become really annoying, because you don't need a general manager to micromanage all the fucking time. You just need him to be there as an authority. And these new general managers aren't even legit authorities. They're to the top. So it's stupid. Very stupid. Overpowering presence, but underpowering role. And the main event, I really like how Christian was handling himself, building up to this match throughout SmackDown. This is the Christian I felt needed to win the world title. It's too bad he ended up having to go to TNA, because this guy should have won something, some world title, because he, right here, he's at his most interesting, in my opinion. Here he's sort of, he's badass. He's not only Captain Charisma, but I can tell why he's Captain Charisma. He's like, because I'm Christian, bitch. Nigga says what he wants. He's talking about all his accolades. And this is different from heel Christian of 2011, where he was just completely chicken shit, didn't brag about anything, didn't really have that intense cockiness and intensity that he has now. And this match in itself with him and Batista was great. It was a good main event. Featured two people that belonged in the main event, and it kicked ass. So that's my review. No part 2. Suck my dick.